The federal government is using special powers to regulate handgun sales, enacting a freeze instead of waiting to pass Bill C-21. These new measures are intended to help quell rising gun violence across the country. As we mentioned, we are joined by Minister Marco Mendicino for more on this announcement. Welcome to your morning.
Good morning.
Why use these powers instead of waiting for Bill C-21 to be debated and passed in the House?
Well, today is an historic day because going forward, it will be illegal to buy, sell, transfer, import, or export handguns, save and except a few exemptions. Why are we doing this? Why are we using the powers that you just mentioned? To stop the alarming growth of handguns in Canada. 45 to 55,000 new registrations every year for about the last decade, which has seen handguns become the #1 type of gun used in homicides, and the impacts are real. In communities across the country, I've met with victims and survivors. Just yesterday, I was in South Simcoe in the Barrie area for the 2 fallen officers' funeral. I've been to too many of those lately. And so we have to turn this around, and we believe that by introducing the provisions under the Firearms Act today, that we will be able to reverse the trend. We owe it to victims and survivors to do better.
Minister Mendicino, you would know these stats as well as I do, covering local news for a couple of decades and also speaking with various chiefs of police across the country. The guns most often, handguns most used often in crimes, are not registered handguns.
Well, that's why we're also taking action at the border, investing over $320 million just since last year to give more boots on the ground for the CBSA, more technology to them to detect and to stop the flow of guns into Canada. Last year was a record year for illegal gun seizures. That's why under Bill C-21, we are raising maximum sentences for hardened gun criminals who would terrorize our communities. And behind each and every one of those statistics that you mentioned off the top is a family, a survivor. And I've met with them, and I don't know how you look in their eyes and accept the status quo. And this is my singular motivation. This is why it's important that we pass Bill C-21 as quickly as possible, why we continue to invest at our borders so that we can stop the flow of illegal guns, and perhaps most importantly, why we continue to roll out our $250 Building Safer Communities Fund so that we can stop gun crime before it starts.
No argument around more protections needed at the borders, and I think police services across the country would applaud that. But registered gun owners, those who are looking to register their weapons, might say, why ban people who are looking to register and own a handgun responsibly?
Well, first, I respect law-abiding gun owners. I've met with them, and I know that they place safety as a paramount value. But I do want to underline that this has been a phenomenon that has been occurring, which is to say we've seen the handgun universe explode over the last decade. And at the same time, we've seen handgun crime specifically go up. It is now the #1 type of gun used in homicides in our hometown in the GTA, in Vancouver, where I am at this morning with the Prime Minister, and right across the country. So there is also the violence that is caused by inaction, the violence that is caused by accepting the status quo. And we can't do that. And that's why today is an important day. And we're going to continue to put forward a concrete plan to eradicate gun violence once and for all, because we owe it to victims and survivors. And I cannot stress enough their anguish, their loss. We owe it to them to do better.
Last question. Do you have the power to regulate high-powered weapons? And if so, why not put a freeze on those?
Well, in fact, we have put in place an assault-style rifle ban that is now 2 years running, and we plan to implement a buyback program that will get those guns out of our communities once and for all. They have no place in a neighborhood. These are guns that were designed with one purpose, and that is to kill people by exerting the maximum amount of lethal force in the shortest period of time. We've seen those guns used in tragedies like in Portapic-and-Truro in Nova Scotia, at the Quebec City Mosque, and at the Polytechnique Institution in Montreal. And it is for that same reason, and again, quite honestly, as a result of the conversations that I've had with the families who've been impacted by those tragedies, that we are also taking action against assault-style rifles and the handgun provisions that are coming into force, making it illegal to buy, sell, transfer, import, export on a go forward, and all the other things we're doing to prevent gun crime is how we stop the next tragedy from occurring in the first place.
Last question, because I know you have a busy day in front of you. Ottawa's acting deputy chief told the Emergencies Act inquiry the police force, quote, floundered with misled intelligence infighting during Ottawa's convoy protest earlier this year. Do you stand by your government's decision to enforce the Emergencies Act?
We do, and it was necessary. And not only are you hearing from law enforcement, but Judge Rouleau is hearing from various officials what the direct impacts were to ordinary people. People couldn't get to their jobs. Thousands of people, not only people in Ottawa, but right across the country in southwestern Ontario. There was a huge interruption to the manufacturing sector. People couldn't take their kids to daycare. And you heard as well evidence that kids couldn't get access to their chemotherapy treatment for cancer. So the impacts were extensive, and it went on for 3 weeks, and we took the decision reluctantly, but we took it because it was unprecedented. We needed to give the tools to law enforcement, and it worked. And now there will be transparency about those circumstances, and hopefully we'll all take some lessons from it so that we never have to use that act again.
Minister, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.